Welcome to the Model Minorities podcast, where we are going to do deep dives into seemingly ordinary people's lives as they share their everyday life stories. That's the goal. In this episode, I think Jae and I are just going to give an introduction of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we'll have a lot of different guests in this episode or in the coming forth episodes. But before we go ahead and do that, we're not celebrities, so people don't really know about us. So we
Yeah.
just kind of wanted to talk about us and just our, life experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Sam Lee. I guess I'm going to be the host. Jay's our tech guy. He is going to do everything production wise. Of course, we're going to wear both hats.
Of course.
So you'll be co-host as well. You want to go ahead and start, Jay?
For the audience out there, my name is Jae Kyung. I'm a Korean American. My family and I immigrated to America back in 1999. So I was born in Korea. Lived, the first part
North
of my
Korea or South Korea?
South Korea, bro. I hate it when people ask me
I
that
know,
question.
how lame,
I'm sure
right?
you get a ton of that too, right? I hate it. When people ask me, it's like, hey, where are you from? North
Yeah.
or South? It's like,
How did I escape and come over
there's
and learn
no way
English?
for me to be North Korean be living here. So, though it's the same country for North and South, we are divided.
Yeah.
Still technically at war.
Yeah.
But my family and I immigrated here. And the reason for coming here was my parents thought that obviously they made the sacrifice, right? They wanted to provide me a better standard of living, better opportunity. America is so called that country of opportunity. So that's why we
Right.
came.
Word. Same with all of us. I think, my parents too had a choice to stay in Korea, but then they heard of this far off land called America where the opportunity was limitless. So, hey, let's pack up and go halfway across the world into an area where we don't even know the language or the culture,
Of course.
but let's take that risk.
Yeah.
Come all the way over here on a PNG. We're going to talk about that. It's a plane for all you non-Korean speakers.
Fresh off the PNG.
Yeah. And then imagine landing here. I came when I was about 4, I think. Yeah, I
Okay.
was 4 years old. Must have been 79.
Mhm.
So 79, 80-ish. And then, I think my dad, the first job he had was cleaning office buildings. Him
Okay.
and his best friend, his Hyung at the time, um, started cleaning offices. So basically a janitor.
Yeah.
Much like the offices that I worked in when I first got into the workforce, and so he saved every penny and then opened up a dry cleaners. Right.
Mhm.
What did you guys do, Jay, when you guys first came over?
For me, I guess something that made my parents' life a little bit easier was, at least from my dad's side, all of his relatives, all of his siblings lived here in America.
Oh, you guys were the last ones.
We were the last one from my dad's side. Unfortunately, from my mom's side, all of her, she has a younger brother,
Mhm.
and my grandfather passed away, but my grandmother, my mom's mom, they still reside in Korea. So my mom is the first one, I guess, from her family to immigrate to America. But for my dad, his siblings, but both, not both. He's a family of 5, so he's the youngest of the 5 siblings. They all live in America. They all immigrated here, years back. My uncle, my dad's brother, had a business out here, so when he first came, he was able to help him out with that from the beginning.
Yeah, that's cool.
Whereas for my mom, I guess that's where the struggle kind of began, because my mom, obviously, when we came here, we came with very little possessions. We didn't have a car. We weren't able to get a driving license like right off the bat. So my mom could really only work where she could walk to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we first immigrated when we came here. We lived in the city of Rolling Heights, which is in California. Um, Back then, it wasn't as quote unquote diverse. Right?
Yeah.
So now it's a very hugely Asian influenced
What was
city.
what was the ethnicity dominant ethnicity back then?
Back then there was a lot of blacks, a lot of African Americans, a lot of Hispanics.
Yep.
And not too many Asians.
Right.
So when I first came here, I was a young kid. I came in the latter end of 3rd grade. Didn't speak any English, and I thought, okay, this is America. America doesn't have any people that look like me.
Right.
Right. So I there wasn't any Koreans out back then. There weren't
Hmm.
any Koreans, and I became very quickly, adjusted into the American culture of being.
You assimilated
Yeah,
into it.
I
You
did.
told me you used to wear baggy
I
pants.
did. Like those checker short pants that came all the way to your ankle, but they were short pants.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was my life.
Yeah.
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 How about for you, Sam?
Similar. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very much so. So when we first landed, I guess,
Okay.
we lived in a little city called Bellflower, California.
Mhm.
In Bellflower at the time were a lot of Caucasians,
Okay.
working class. Okay, this wasn't Beverly Hills by any means. This was the auto mechanics and the plumbers,
Mhm.
that the working class, blue collar guys. And so I grew up in a city called Cerritos, which is neighboring Lakewood
Okay.
and Bellflower. But Bellflower was an interesting place. My parents had a dry cleaners in Downey and in Bellflower,
Mhm.
so it's grew up in kind of like a bubble of just my brother and I were probably the first Asian faces that any of these kids ever seen. So I grew up with a lot of like not discontent, but a lot of like a lot of racism in
Yeah.
the sense that kids can be cruel.
Mhm.
But my brother and I were pretty tough kids. We're like my dad, so we didn't cry about anything. We just really kind of stood up for ourselves. I
Mhm.
think my parents were pretty wise in the sense that they put us in taekwondo right before even I started school. So I already knew how to kick and punch by the time I got into school. And I think my dad did that on purpose because he kind of
Oh, he
knew the
kind of knew.
climate. Yeah, he thought he goes, hey, my kids are gonna need to defend themselves. No one looks like you. So
So
yeah,
did you feel racism like from the beginning
yeah. I didn't
at a
really
young
know.
age?
I didn't really know what to call it, but I
Okay.
do know that all it was there were a couple kids in every grade that were the dominant kids
Mhm.
that picked on everyone else.
And how
So
old were you when you first felt this?
third grade.
Wow.
Yeah, third grade is when I first felt it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
For me, it was a little bit different.
yeah.
In a sense that it's not that I didn't feel racism,
Hmm.
but the first thing that came into my mind was, when I lived in Korea back then. Now Korea is a country where a lot of people go travel to, so you'll see a lot, like a mixed bowl of ethnicities there.
Sure.
Back then, it wasn't like that.
No.
So we're coming out of pre 2099, and that's when like this whole huge financial crisis called like an IMF happened
Right.
in
I
in
remember that.
Korea.
Is that part of the reason why you
I
guys
don't
came?
know if that is,
Hmm.
but that was the era when we
Right.
came out, and there were no. I came when I was in third grade. When I lived in Korea, I've never seen another ethnicity or race
Right.
other than Korean.
Right. Right. Right.
Right. So I came to America, and from what I learned, America was supposed to be this country with people with blue eyes and blonde hair.
Yes.
When I
Right.
came to Rolling Heights, that's not necessarily what I saw.
No.
I saw a bunch of African Americans and Hispanics. So I
You're
was
like,
like,
hey, we landed in the wrong place, mom and dad. Where
so
are we?
I thought
Yeah.
that was America.
Hmm.
And I thought, okay, Korea is a country where a lot of Koreans live. America is a country where a lot of African Americans and Hispanics live, right? And I was too young back then, so I didn't really know ethnicities. I only knew them by how they look, right?
Right.
So, I was a kid, my first year of school, I came, my elementary school that I went to first was called Jellic Elementary School. And
Angelic.
I went there, like mid-semester, right? So I had a fresh set of pencils. They weren't sharpened,
Mm.
and didn't speak a lick of English. My teacher told me to go have a seat, and she gave me some worksheets, and I had to fill it in. I had no
No
pencil
sharpener.
sharpeners, right? So I
Yeah.
remember going to the teacher and be like, I got my pencil, and I just did this,
Yeah.
and she just pointed me to the corner,
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's just kind of like my first upbringing up here,
Yeah.
And it was an eye opener for me when I actually went to when my family relocated to the city of Diamond Bar when I was in fourth grade, because it was so different from
Yeah.
Rolling Heights.
And they're neighboring.
They
Like,
are neighboring.
They're neighboring, but it's so different how the
It was so
the zip
different.
codes and those lines that divide cities. It's literally like, they talk about the other side of the tracks.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah.
I totally felt that. Like I remember going to the school,
Yeah.
and my first thought was,
What's going on?
Koreans live in America.
This is where they all were.
Yeah, this is
I was
where
on the other side of the street, and
Yeah.
I didn't see any of this.
Yeah, and
right?
by then, I dressed like how Hispanics and African Americans
Yeah.
dress. So
Baggy clothes. And,
yeah.
yeah.
So I stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't speak good English back then, but
Yeah.
you know, I remember my
They're
broken
like,
English.
hey,
I
there's
spoke super ghetto.
Yeah.
I came in chains and baggy checker pants, and it was like,
you had chains.
yeah. I was in like 4th grade. I had like this gold chain that it's so big you don't need to clip it on. You just put it over your head. Right. Yeah. So that was the look that I had.
Dope.
You know. Yeah. And it didn't help that my
That's
aunt,
fantastic.
she had what do you call those swap meets, right?
Swap meets, yeah.
Yeah. She owned one, and for her, she catered to
that community.
Community. So, I'm going to get all my clothes from her.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was a kid, rocking like, the Echo, all like the Pro Club, all those kind of clothing, before it blew up.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, from the streets. Jay from the streets, man.
I was a ghetto kid that had broken English.
When did anyone point that out to you, or were people standoffish, or were you just too young to kind of recognize anything?
I didn't realize that, but my big dilemma back then, I remember was I remember going to that school, and it wasn't that it was segregated, but I saw clearly that the Asian students were hanging out with themselves. African Americans were there, Hispanics were there, the white people were there. And I was really confused
where I'm
supposed to go.
Yeah. It's like prison.
Yeah.
Where would you go? Where's an Asian man go in prison?
Yeah. I felt so lost.
Right.
Because for 1 year I had to rewire my brain thinking that Koreans didn't exist here. And I was literally the only Korean other than my family living here in America.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden there were a bunch of these Asian kids, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I look like them, but I don't dress like them. I dress like them. I talk like them. I was like, where do I go?
Right.
That was the first dilemma I think I had in America.
So did the Asian kids at Diamond Bar, were they wearing baggy clothes back then?
No. I mean, it kind of, I guess, because that was kind of like the hip way to dress back then.
Yeah. Because by high school, yes, right?
Yeah.
By high school, everyone had the baggy jeans.
Yeah. But no, not when I was in elementary. I was probably like the only kid that
dressed up.
Yeah, with that necklace and
Man, that is a funny story because I could picture you. I can't picture you, but I could imagine you wearing those. So when I was younger as well, the high school days, a little bit about that, but I wore baggy clothes too. That was what was in. But now it's all the fitted stuff that's in, right? It's not even just for adults like us. I mean, the younger generation, they're all wearing the fitted tight jeans. I was at San Diego. This was last year. I was staying at, I think it's a hotel down in the Gaslamp district. So it was, really busy. There was a lot of tourists. This is way before all the coronavirus stuff happened. And so there's a lot of people on the street. And I remember I was walking down back to my hotel and I saw this European family, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they were speaking some type of Scandinavian language or something like that, Dutch or something. And then they were walking down the street and the teenage boys were wearing tights. I mean, the kind that your wife and my wife wear.
And this is the first time you saw it?
This is the first time I saw men, boys wearing tights.
Yeah.
Now I see them wearing,
tight.
I see them wearing the skinny jeans.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see all that everywhere. All right, fine, but they were wearing tights, and like it was nothing. So I thought,
wait, when you say tights, I was thinking actually skinny jeans.
No,
tighter.
Tights. Like nylon stretch tights, like they were athletes, or you see athletes wearing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But these were teenage kids. They looked pretty hip, though. Their hair was all cool and whatever. And I was just wondering, is that? I guess it's acceptable, or that's what we're doing now. Not to shame them. I'm just saying, maybe, who knows? Maybe in a year or two, everyone's gonna be wearing tights. I could borrow my wife's tights. I don't know what's coming.
Sam, I have a really funny story with that. Like I said, when I first came here, I assimilated and I fit I put my identity in the group of, the African Americans, the Hispanics, right?
Right.
And I think it's pretty safe to say that they were, like the cool hip
Yeah.
style back then. The
Trendsetters.
trendsetters, right? So they started the baggy clothes, and I think they were the last ones to probably phase out of the baggy clothes, right?
True. Yeah.
So when I was in high school, and all these people are transitioning into, you first go to the fitted, and then you go to the skinny, and you get the super skinnies, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's getting all these getting all these pants. I was still the guy. I was the last one to transition out, so I was still rocking.
You were holding tight.
I was holding tight. Man, I just could not do it.
It's hard, man.
Yeah, so like I remember going to like the malls to hang out with my buddies back then, and they'll be like, "Dude, Jay, Jay, you gotta change up
You
your
were that
style,
guy.
man." I was that guy, and I was like, man, as much as I want to,
Yeah.
because I want to fit in, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't, man, I can't.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't, push myself to buy one of those pairs of jeans. So my buddy finally bought me one.
Yeah.
And this was when I was in middle school. Actually, this is before.
You
even
have
high
good
school.
friends. You guys, if you guys pay attention long enough, we'll hear stories about his friends, and they're always buying you stuff that so you could fit in, or you can have what you want.
It's really funny because they bought me the pair of pants, and I was like, man, I remember being in my bedroom holding it up,
going, how am I gonna fit into this?
It's like 3 times smaller than in width compared to the pants that I wore. So I was like, man, I can't. There's no way. Like tomorrow, I just wear this to school. Everyone's gonna look at me like, "What the heck is going on?" Right?
Yeah. So in your mind, it's kind of like so drastic.
Yeah. Yes, I remember putting him on and walking around my neighborhood to see if I could do this. And I went back. I was like, "Hell no, I can't do this."
That. Yeah, you got to go from the transition. For me, was from the baggy to like straight. Crew cut, straight fit. Yeah. And then, I thought the straight fit was tight, because...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I was like, what is going on here? But it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I think when I was at some store one day with Sarah, and then I saw these younger kids literally buying... They're trying on and buying girls' jeans. You ever seen that before? So guys out there, to get really fitted jeans and skinny jeans, they were buying girls' jeans.
Dude, but it's crazy because how does your how does it fit
I know exactly
there, right?
what you're talking about. I have a funny story about that. The first time I wore fitted jeans, these aren't even skinny jeans. I wore fitted jeans. They were so tight, and I guess I moved the wrong way. I was in pain. I was like, I'm hurt. I got to get out of these. And I think we're at church, and then on our way home, I was like, oh, something's wrong. It was because of jeans, man.
Sam, but when I first met you, my first impression of you was like, man, Sam dresses really nice.
Oh, no.
You dress really well.
Oh,
that was my first impression. I'm always the guy that just, puts on the same clothes. I'm probably wearing the same clothes that I probably owned like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I have clothes like that.
Yeah. And most of us guys do that.
Yeah, being a dry cleaner kid, my parents are dry cleaners, as I mentioned earlier. My parents, my mom especially, always dry cleaned our clothes, even when we were little kids. She always pressed them.
Pressed and nice and fitted.
Dude, our shorts were pressed. She's pressing our t-shirts, because she just gives it to the employees that do that.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to worry about any of that, and she's busy working, right? So ever since we were young, it feels weird now because my mom's retired.
Yeah.
We pay for dry cleaning. So I'm like, oh man. And then my dry cleaner right here is often late. I'm not going to blow them up, but they're late. Like they tell me Thursday. I was like, great. Come by Thursday afternoon. I give them all day. They're like, oh, sorry. We don't have it yet. And that's happened several times.
Yeah. Do they know that your parents used to own a dry cleaner?
Yeah, I talk to them about it all the time.
Really?
Yeah. And so with that said, I think they're Filipino Americans or Filipino. They're really nice, sweet people. But I remember all the times that a customer would come in to my parents' cleaners and my mom didn't have it ready. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's not ready yet. So it takes me back to that. And then I'm very gracious with them, obviously.
Yeah.
And so
everybody's hustling. It's not that I think my parents never had a dry cleaner. I think it's one of those common jobs that I think a lot of Korean people have.
Yep.
Especially back then, a lot of our parents' generation, when they immigrated here, they did one of the two things. They had a dry cleaner or they had a liquor store.
Yep.
Right. Do you know anything else that maybe they might have done?
Dry cleaner, liquor store, and garment district, I guess, kind of blew up.
Oh yeah, they did. Fashion
that's why the whole fashion district in LA is all owned by Koreans.
Yeah, and I think of the three, that was like the high tier, right?
Yeah, that was the higher tier.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you're selling to importing from Korea or manufacturing in downtown LA. Shout out to Forever 21. They changed the game on that. But then they actually just kind of took over that space,
Mm.
and became
Yeah, you're right.
the
You're right.
dominant force down there. But
Yeah.
yeah, dry cleaners was the big deal. And then the liquor stores, of course. And
Hmm.
then all of that came to a head when in '92 with the Cape Town riots, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Cape Town
I
riots?
wasn't here at
Yeah,
that
you
time.
weren't here yet.
Yeah. Do
Okay.
you remember? Can you talk? Tell me a little bit about that
Oh yeah,
and like
man,
your
I
experience
remember
from
it
that.
clearly
Okay.
because it was something that was kind of building up. It was boiling, and the
Hmm.
media kind of positioned and framed it as a Korean black thing.
Yeah.
But if you really took a step back, it was not a Korean black thing at all. It was about oppression.
Hmm.
It was about people not feeling heard. It was definitely about um, the LAPD
Hmm.
and their tactics and how they treated people.
Hmm.
But the media positioned it as Koreans being unfair to blacks. Yeah, there was some of that
That's
in
crazy.
the liquor stores, but and that came to fruition in '92, where the riots started.
Hmm.
When you hold down a certain group of people long enough, they will push back,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And you
And
talk about minorities. That's like that's we were living it.
yeah, so that's the group of people who own stores and gun shops and dry cleaners
Hmm.
and clothing stores. I remember right when it started happening, we turned on the TV and I was with my friend Charles. Shout out to Charles. Um, Charles Kim from high school. We saw his mom's clothing store
Hmm.
on TV and people running in and out of it. They
That's
had already
crazy, man.
broken the glass. They've breached the entrance and they were coming out with clothes.
Oh my gosh.
Then the camera angle widens out and you see that the whole entire
Hmm.
street
Not just
is
her shop.
happening. Yeah.
It's everywhere.
And then we were kind of removed because we were 25 miles
Hmm.
southeast of that city of
Yeah.
Koreatown. So, but guaranteed a lot of Koreans were watching and praying and looking at that situation.
Yeah. That's crazy. And how
Yeah.
do you think that affects, like I guess, quote unquote, the relationship between like the Korean and the blacks now? Do you think things have gotten better? And if it
Oh,
did, like what was the cause of it?
I think it's definitely gotten better. I think it has to do with possibly a common enemy theory,
Hmm.
but I think as lines of communication have opened up and people have an open ear and open heart to understand and listen to each other, we understand that, Korean Americans are just here trying to do what everyone else is trying to
Yeah.
do, is
Yeah.
just trying to get a little piece of the pie
Hmm.
so that their children can live better lives than they did.
Hmm.
How can you really blame anyone for doing that,
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
then, for the black community, we understand that, they're working and there's some challenges against, black people within their communities and the
Hmm.
structure of how society is kind of built in America.
Hmm.
There's challenges there as well. So an open understanding on both sides
Hmm.
that, what, let's stop pointing fingers at each other. There's ways and avenues to help each other,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
but I'm not an expert on that by no means. I lived through it, but it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Some of my friends actually went down there to help.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they actually went down there and to
Were they
kind
the
of help.
rooftop Koreans?
Yeah. So, Koreans, we're like, there's 3 degrees of separation.
Hmm.
That 7 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon.
Hmm.
For Koreans, someone that knows someone
Of course.
that we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
all connected in some way.
Hmm.
So with that said, there's a guy I think during that time got shot by I think crossfire, friendly fire
Hmm.
maybe, and his name was also Samuel.
Oh wow.
So R.I.P. Samuel. I didn't know him directly, but he was friends of friends.
Hmm.
So that was tough on their family, and obviously, Roy Choi,
Hmm.
he talks about that too in one of his shows
Yeah.
about that during that time, because I
Hmm.
think his father owned a liquor store
Mm,
down there during that time as well. But there's a lot of information about that stuff online,
of course.
right? One song I'd like to talk about is one of my favorite bands growing up in Southern California around the OC. They were from Long Beach. Sublime. They have a song
Yeah.
about the riots of that time. But yeah, it's a cool song,
Mm.
1992. But yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about jobs, like let's just do a little bit more introduction,
Yeah.
about us too. So Sam, like, what do you do now?
I currently work on a project on behalf of American Express, the credit card company, and we go out and we help and support small businesses, give
Mm,
them resources, and kind of help them get more exposure and lift them up within their communities.
mm,
So it's really close, near and dear to my heart because
yeah,
I grew up in a small
of
business and I know
course,
how important it is.
of course.
And honestly, we never took American Express. It always
Well, back then it was too expensive,
it's
right?
too
Quote unquote too
expensive,
expensive.
man. But with the new stuff that American Express has developed and have done to kind of open up their channels and whatnot, it's been a lot easier and a lot. It's beneficial for small businesses
Hmm.
really to open up and start openly accepting American Express. A
Hmm.
lot of things have changed. So I'm on that. I'm a regional manager. Take care of the West Coast, most of it here and there. And so
Yeah, that's awesome, Sam.
but yeah, I love my job. But right now with this coronavirus going around, it's on hold.
Scary times, right?
Yeah.
Scary times. Yeah, I
What
mean,
about
same for
you?
me. I mean, I do
You're an
my own.
entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that. I mean, I think nowadays everybody tries to call themselves, entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I don't really like calling myself that, but I am self-employed. I do my own business. I'm in the business of wholesale distribution for women's shoes.
Right.
This year, I've launched it into retail and as well as gotten into different avenues. Um, in a bigger scope of, I guess, fashion and beauty.
Hmm.
It's funny because that's not necessarily what I'm interested in. I'm not the guy that's always like dressed on, quote unquote on fashion, but that's something that I started, like 5 years ago, kind of for fun,
Right.
and it kind of took off. So I had to really make a decision. Do I put more eggs in this basket? Maybe not all, but more eggs in this basket, or do I go back to school? Because I studied, kinesiology, exercise science, which I
Right.
still have a huge passion for, and I really wanted to do, I guess, have a job in that field. But
Did you let me dig into
yeah,
that a little bit? So, did you want to be a physical therapist, a trainer, athlete?
so at first I wanted to be a physical therapist,
Okay.
but I loved training,
Yeah.
and um, so that's kind of when my model changed. And I said
Bodybuilding specifically or
bodybuilding specific,
training?
but I
Oh,
just loved helping people be healthy
right on.
and get healthy, right? So
Yep.
I kind of changed my direction, right? So usually PT, OT, or PA, things like all those things, they're helping patients or people because they already got affected. Now they have to help them get healthy, So
Right.
I wanted to be on the other end. I wanted to keep healthy people healthy so that they don't have to go through these other avenues.
Hmm.
And that's what I was focusing on. So I still a lot of training. I did do a little bit of not necessarily like licensed PT, but people that did have a little bit of disabilities and they already went through their PT. I just helped them with more of the strength and conditioning. But while I was doing all these kind of things, I was always the kid that loved selling stuff online.
Right.
Maybe I'm just because that's part of my generation, but whether it's eBay or Craigslist, like that's like stuff I did when I was, at a young age.
How old
Um,
were you on
when I
eBay?
first did it,
Yeah.
probably middle school, like using my parents' like credit cards and
What
stuff
the?
like that. It that
That's
you know why
dope.
I think this is the thing. One thing that really helped me boost and start at a young age is because my dad's business primarily, not my dad's business, sorry, my uncle's business that my dad was affiliated with, they
Hmm.
primarily dealt on eBay. So I
Oh,
constantly heard eBay at a young age,
right.
right? So I knew what it was, and I loved just selling stuff. I loved buying stuff cheap and selling it for more. That
Yeah.
was like my thing, right?
Yeah.
That's just how the world goes around, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not only with stocks, it's
Yeah.
even with retail, wholesale,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
We might have bought this for a certain price, but
Yeah.
somebody else bought this for a cheaper price and sold it to us for a higher
One of
price.
my favorite quotes is everything starts and stops with a sale.
Yeah,
It really
so
does.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You look around this room and everything it had
Yep.
to be bought,
Yep.
right? And,
Bought and
and
sold, bought and
whoever we
sold.
bought it from had to buy it from somebody else.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's where I started, and I started just a small e-commerce business. And for me, the reason why I started a business of wholesale more than retail is because I was like fresh off of college, right? So I didn't
Yeah.
have that much money.
Right.
I don't have the type of capital needed to start up a business, right, where I needed more capital.
Right.
So I started that business. In the beginning, it was a zero capital business. I got paid first. My money is held up for, let's say 2 or 15 days, depending on which platform I'm selling on. And then I can swipe that on my credit card, which I have to pay back in 30 days.
Right.
Right. So it was a zero capital business. And that's what I started. And once it started taking off, I think at the 6 month mark, um, that's when we were going into the new year. And I was like, okay, I got to make a decision. Do I, enroll into the master's program, or do I just try this business out? And
Ooh.
that was the risk that I had taken.
Did your parents pressure you either way? Like, did they want you to go back to school? Was that their thing, or did they say, "Hey"?
They still talk to me about that.
Yeah.
I think because,
Talk to you about going back to school.
of course,
Oh.
yeah, of course,
Okay.
and that's only because, and I understand where they're coming from too, because our parents are first generation Koreans, right?
Yeah.
So all they know is that education is super important.
Yeah.
And I'm not downplaying education,
Yeah.
but you talk about America, especially America, there are a lot of
It's a
successful
different
people
place.
that got to their place and avenue without necessarily having the highest
Mm.
degree of education.
No.
So
There was a statistic that was, I guess, validated. I don't know how they would validate something like this, but I guess over time they saw that the people who were most successful, they had one common thing, quality in common, and it wasn't education. Do you know what? Do you know the answer
no,
to this?
I don't.
So, highly successful people, they did a study on them and what commonalities there are, and you would think it's education or money or coming from a good family or coming from a certain zip code. None of that was true. What was true, though, is that the measurement of grit.
Mm.
So, let that sink in.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's my season right
it's
now.
great. It's grit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my season right now with this whole coronavirus. I told you a little bit about it. My revenues have plummeted,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm in the avenue of fashion and beauty. When we're having, like, it might not be nationwide right now, but at least for us in California, it's
Yeah.
statewide, right? If we're on a lockdown, one of the last things people care about is what they're wearing out to outside.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't need to care about that.
Exactly.
My shirt is good enough.
Exactly, exactly. And I do deal, worldwide, and especially to, all 50 states. But with this whole coronavirus going around,
it's on hold.
It's on hold.
People are buying necessities.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Online, right?
So that's something that I've been focusing on more recently,
Ah.
just kind of expanding my channel into more of like the necessity aspects.
Different things. Yeah. It's hard to compete though, right? With those.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
What I mean is, I think one thing that I've learned is, this past year, while I guess working on my business, is certain type of avenues or industries are very old business. So what I mean is, like, one thing I learned is, like, hardware, tool, paint supplies, things like that. It's very old business. Construction, old business.
Yeah.
I think I'm very new at this. I've only been in search about this for about like 3 months, 4 months now. But I got a few contracts with like even grocery distributors. They're very old school.
Right.
Very, very old school. Like, if I tell them to send me like a line sheet, right, or like an Excel price sheet, they don't know what that is. They want to send me a physical
sample
catalog.
Oh, catalog.
Yeah, like a yellow book.
Oh,
I'm like, who uses this anymore?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I get, and a lot of them don't have pricing. So if I want to get pricing, I have to contact the sales rep for individual pricing.
Oh, I see.
Right. So it's, what I mean is, like, competition, yes, high, but at the same time very low too, because some of the businesses that are very fast paced, or they don't want to do tedious things, they don't want to work with companies like this where they can't get an Excel line sheet. Right? So those are the ones that I could maybe focus on, and be like, okay, maybe a company or somebody was, let's say, too lazy or didn't have the time to focus on this, and I could get that market.
There's a little niche. Maybe you shouldn't be sharing that with the world.
No, but you know what,
online
though?
community. No, I'm kidding.
And as somebody that is
awesome.
self-employed, I don't want to use the word entrepreneurs so lightly, but as somebody that is self-employed and I do my own things, I'm always so appreciative of people that are willing to help. And that's something that I want to do too. I think there's always enough money to go around the whole world. I don't think there's, the world would not be fun if I was the only billionaire or if I was the only millionaire, right?
Right.
If I would love it if all my friends and family and the people around me could all be wealthy too, right?
We have the same mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that JFK quote: high tides float all boats. So you want to be, you want everyone around you to be successful as well.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I think what goes around
That's
comes
great.
around. So I would love to help people as much as I would love to be helped.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's awesome, man.
yeah,
Dude, so you and I decided to do this. Should we talk about how and how we came to
yeah,
this? Yeah.
yeah.
I guess for a while, I've been a huge podcast fan. I watch a lot of different podcasts, and the key word is watch.
Mhm.
So for me, I wasn't necessarily listening to podcasts in my car, though I do drive a lot, and I do travel a bit. But what I was doing is on my downtime, I was watching a lot of podcasts,
Yeah,
and one of my favorites, of course, I'm a big fan. I went to see him live a few times. Bobby Lee's podcast,
yeah,
Tiger Belly.
yeah. And you're the one that introduced me to that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, shout out to Bobby Lee
Mhm.
and his group out there. Tiger Belly was really interesting. It was fun. It was
Yeah.
just kind of something you could watch as an entertainment piece,
Mhm.
less than it's like a show. It
Yeah,
is a show.
it really is.
Yeah,
It is.
and so I was
And
a
even
big
our
fan of
set,
that.
it's inspired by Tiger Belly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the way it's set up a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so uh, as I was thinking about Tiger Belly and other podcasts that I'm a fan of, I thought in the back of my mind, there's a niche, there's a little gap, for minorities, Asian Americans, or just any type of minorities out there to kind of showcase their lives.
Mhm.
Tiger Belly is fine; they have big guests on there,
Yeah.
stars.
Mhm.
But what about the everyday guy who
Yeah.
has
The average
their
American, right?
average American has their
Yeah.
story, and it's unique,
Mhm.
especially here in Southern California. We're very fortunate to be down here. And as I had that idea, I shared it with someone at church,
Mhm.
Kevin,
Mhm.
and then Kevin's eyes opened up wide and said, "Dude, we need to talk, right?" And then we had this little meeting, you and I and Kevin, us
Mhm.
three, and realized we had literally a parallel
Yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah. We were thinking about doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So Kevin is a business partner of mine,
right.
for not the business I run by myself, but I guess another business, and um, he's a very interesting guy too.
Hmm.
His network is very deep, and he's always the guy that wanted to try everything and anything.
Right,
So if I'm gonna be honest, doing the podcast was something that I was interested in, but it wasn't my idea to start it right away.
right.
He had pitched that idea to me, and I wanted to do the same thing. And I remember one day, he called me and he was like, "Hey, so I had this phone call last night with Sam at like 10 p.m. at night, and he asked me if I could, be the host of his podcast. And guess what? He wants to do the same thing that we wanted to do." So I was like, "Oh my god, that blew my mind."
Yeah,
Right? So, unfortunately, Kevin's not here at the moment because he is very busy with his work.
right, right.
Um,
He
but it's exciting, that
brought
at least
out.
for Sam and I, that our ideas aligned, and we
Yeah.
wanted to really do this, to put our voices out there, not just only our voices, but the guests that we bring.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You brought up a point. Yeah, I'm no host. Everyone, yeah, and we were going back and forth. I actually had this idea just to produce it and have Kevin be the host, but he was excited about it in the beginning, but he got super busy with his group,
Yeah,
his hustle network,
yeah.
Asian Hustle Network,
Hmm.
and his other businesses.
Of
So
course.
he had to politely bow out, and we're here now. And I'm glad Jay and I got to meet, and like you said, our ideas aligned.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we do this necessarily because it's super easy. I think it's actually super
No.
tough.
Yeah.
We've already tried filming so many times and recording so many times, and
Yeah.
there's like a million things that go wrong.
Yep.
But I think one thing important for us is that we do cherish this time together,
Yeah.
and we really both want to get this out there,
Yeah.
right?
I
So
think it's important, and
I totally agree.
yeah, what the message and the voice that can be heard
Hmm.
through this outlet, I think, is necessary.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's do it. What Jay and I have promised is try to bring you the best product we can bring you,
yeah.
because that's really what this is,
Of
right?
course,
It's
of
it's
course.
it's, it's something that you and I are pouring our time and energy and
Hmm.
efforts into, and we want it to be fun, entertaining, maybe educational,
Yeah,
somehow. But again, we're not hosts, we're not professionals, and we're not comics.
yeah.
We're just everyday dudes. We're just talking
We're
to,
just normal dudes,
yeah,
right?
talking to our network, and yeah, we encourage everyone to please subscribe.
Yeah. And I think for all the listeners out there, and watchers,
Yeah,
I think we have a lot of interesting guests that are lined up, and I hope that you guys are looking forward to hear not just for a comic relief, but just it's really interesting talking to people and learning about, I guess, their past or their history, their struggles, their victories, right? And
Yes.
that's where you learn a lot from. So just be on the lookout. Constantly follow us so that you could be caught up with all the different guests that are aligned to
Yeah.
come.
And just a shameless plug, just help us out.
Yeah, shameless plug. Please.
Yeah, help us out, guys.
Please.
And if you're even if you're not Asian American, if you're a minority, you could have a little insight into a culture or an area that you might not have known before. So this widens your knowledge of the people that live around you.
Yeah.
And we just want to encourage everyone to subscribe.
Hmm.
And yeah, listen.
Yeah.
And we can drop a podcast every week. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
That's the goal.
So
That's the
yeah,
goal. That's
pay
what we'll work
attention.
on.
I think that's it. I
Yeah.
think we can wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching, for listening and watching. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you continue to do so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys.